No, Mr. Speaker, I simply want to wish the Prime Minister happy Christmas. How does he intend on spending his final one in Downing Street?
Prime Minister.
Keir Starmer has been humiliated today.
The House of Commons has seen anger, it has seen chaos, it has even seen outright fury. But today, it saw something far more devastating. Laughter. Not laughter from the public gallery, not laughter from the opposition benches alone, but laughter that rolled across the chamber. Cutting, mocking, and impossible to stop.
No, Mr. Speaker, I simply want to wish the Prime Minister happy Christmas. How does he intend on spending his final one in Downing Street?
Prime Minister.
I'm going to get an update from the Chancellor on Grangemouth in just a minute.
As Prime Minister Keir Starmer stood frozen at the dispatch box, publicly humiliated in front of the entire nation, this wasn't a policy defeat, this wasn't a lost vote, this was personal. It happened during Prime Minister's questions, the most watched, most dangerous arena in British politics, a place where leaders are tested, reputations are shattered, and mistakes live forever. Stephen Flynn rose, calm, measured, almost cheerful. The chamber sensed something coming. Flynn began softly, invoking the season of goodwill. He smiled, he paused. And then, with surgical precision, he dismantled the Prime Minister, not with anger, not with shouting, but with humour so sharp it drew gasps. He told the House what he wouldn't ask Starmer about. Not the broken promises on energy bills, not the thousands of North Sea jobs being lost, not the chaos engulfing the Labour Party, not the budget, not Starmer's leadership crisis. The pause was deliberate. Then came the line that detonated Westminster. How does the Prime Minister intend on spending his final Christmas in Downing Street? For a split second, silence, then eruption, laughter burst from the benches. MPs leaned back in disbelief. Some clapped. Others laughed openly. Even seasoned parliamentarians struggled to hide their reaction. And there, at the centre of it all, stood Keir Starmer.
It's the season of goodwill, so with that in mind, I don't intend, it is indeed the season of goodwill, so with that in mind, I don't intend on asking the Prime Minister about his broken promises on energy bills, the 1,000 jobs being lost in the North Sea, the fact that Peter Mandelson is still a member of the House of Lords. I won't even ask him about the chaos that is engulfing the Labour Party, his budget and indeed his own leadership. No, Mr. Speaker, I simply want to wish the Prime Minister happy Christmas. How does he intend on spending his final one in Downing Street?
Prime Minister.
Stunned, blinking, rattled. This wasn't heckling, it was ridicule. And ridicule is far more dangerous than anger in politics. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. If you care about what's really happening in British politics, behind the headlines, beyond the spin, then please take just 1 second to like this video and subscribe to the Britain Daily. It's completely free and it helps us keep bringing you the hard-hitting stories that matter. Starmer tried to respond. He shifted to talking points. He mentioned Grangemouth, investment, jobs, Scotland, but the moment was already gone. The House wasn't listening anymore because once a Prime Minister becomes the punchline, authority evaporates.
He's clearly not interested in Grangemouth. You would have thought on a day like this that he'd want to welcome the £120 million of investment into Groundwood. It's a landmark investment protecting 500 jobs and hundreds more across Scotland's supply chain. And he can't even bring himself to mention it.
Flynn followed up by pointing out that Starmer couldn't even bring himself to welcome a £120 million investment protecting hundreds of Scottish jobs. On a day like this, in a chamber like this, the contrast was brutal. A confident opposition MP, a flustered Prime Minister, and a Commons that had made up its mind. This wasn't just mockery, it was a warning. Because when Parliament laughs at you, the country soon follows. And this moment, replayed, clipped, shared and memed, may go down as the point where Keir Starmer stopped looking like a Prime Minister and started looking like a leader on borrowed time. And that was only the beginning. What happened next was even more damaging than the laughter itself, because humiliation doesn't end when the microphones switch off. It multiplies. Within minutes, clips of Stephen Flynn's question flooded social media. TikTok, ex-Facebook, WhatsApp groups. The moment was replayed again and again. How will you spend your final Christmas in Downing Street? Followed by the Commons erupting. The reaction was instant. Political commentators didn't debate policy. They didn't analyse economics. They focused on one thing only. Keir Starmer looked finished. Headlines shifted tone within hours. Starmer loses the room. PMQs turns brutal. Labour leader becomes the joke. Even outlets usually sympathetic to Labour couldn't spin it, because this wasn't an attack. It was exposure. Inside Westminster, Labour MPs were furious, not at Stephen Flynn, but at Starmer himself. Sources describe colleagues burying their heads, refusing interviews and texting aides in panic. Some MPs openly complained that Starmer had no instinct for the moment, no authority, no grip, no spark. And then came the worst part. Silence. Downing Street didn't issue a sharp rebuttal, no counterattack, no decisive response. Because what do you say when Parliament laughs at you? Behind closed doors, party insiders admitted the damage ran deeper than one PMQ's exchange. This moment confirmed a growing fear inside Labour that Starmer doesn't command the room when it matters most. Former allies began quietly distancing themselves. Backbenchers deleted posts praising leadership. Senior figures cancelled media appearances, and across the country, voters noticed. Poll trackers showed a sudden dip in leadership confidence, not about policy, not about ideology, but about strength. The most dangerous metric of all, because voters can forgive mistakes. They can forgive broken promises. What they don't forgive is weakness. Stephen Flynn, meanwhile, didn't gloat. He didn't need to. His question had already done the damage. Calm, controlled, devastating. So it made him look confident, sharp and fearless. Starmer looked defensive, distracted, shrinking, and that contrast mattered. Political history is full of moments like this, moments where a single exchange reshapes perception, where power quietly transfers not through votes, but through confidence. For Labour, this wasn't just embarrassment, it was a warning sign, a sign that authority is slipping, that control is fading, that even Parliament no longer treats the Prime Minister as untouchable. And once that spell breaks, it never comes back. Because politics isn't only about what you say, it's about how the room reacts when you say it. And this time, the room laughed. By the end of that Prime Minister's questions, something fundamental had shifted. Not in policy, not in law, but in perception. Keir Starmer walked into the Commons as Prime Minister. He walked out as a man whose authority had been publicly punctured. Because when Parliament laughs at you, it isn't just noise, it's judgment. This wasn't rowdy backbench heckling. This wasn't partisan shouting. This was spontaneous, uncontrolled laughter from across the chamber. The kind that can't be staged and can't be silenced. And everyone watching knew what it meant. Starmer didn't just fail to answer Stephen Flynn's question, he confirmed it. His response was rambling, misplaced, and completely disconnected from the moment. While Flynn skewered him with humour and timing, Starmer reached for briefing notes and safe lines that no longer worked. That's when the penny dropped. For weeks, critics had been whispering that Starmer felt temporary, that he sounded like a caretaker, not a leader, that he governed defensively, not decisively. PMQs turned those whispers into a roar. By the evening, the phrase, "Final Christmas in Downing Street," had taken on a life of its own. Memes spread, commentators repeated it. Voters shared it with captions that said everything without saying a word. Inside Labour, the damage control machine kicked into overdrive, but it was already too late. MPS privately admitted the moment cut through in a way no attack ad ever could. Because humour disarms fear, and ridicule destroys authority. Starmer's problem now isn't Stephen Flynn, it's momentum. Once the image of inevitability cracks, it spreads fast. Donors hesitate, allies hedge, rivals sharpen their knives, and suddenly every question, every stumble, every pause is interpreted as weakness. This is how leadership collapses in modern politics, not with a vote, not with a scandal, but with a moment that tells the public this person no longer owns the room. And the Commons made that judgment loud and clear. As the chamber emptied, MPS were still smiling, still shaking their heads, still replaying the line that landed harder than any accusation. How does he intend on spending his final Christmas in Downing Street? It wasn't just a joke, it was a prophecy. Whether it comes true or not, one thing is certain. Keir Starmer can no longer rely on silence, discipline or caution to protect him. The spell is broken, the room has turned. And once that happens, politics moves fast, very fast. This wasn't just a bad day at PMQs. It was a defining moment, a warning shot, and possibly the beginning of the end. If you want more unfiltered breakdowns of the moments that really shape British politics, like this video, share it and subscribe to Britain Briefed. Because sometimes history doesn't shout, sometimes it laughs.